When surveyed, only 53% of Americans think that climate change is caused by humans. We're split down the middle, and when it comes down to it, this is a matter of miscommunication. We are unable to use common terminology, and so are unable to agree on some of the most simple concepts. But why is this happening? How did our political environment become hostile toward the environment? And most importantly, what can we do to start fixing this? When people think of climate change, many would describe it as being a political controversy, seeing as how it has been one of the main topics at many presidential debates. But really, it is more than that. A political issue means that people on different sides of the political spectrums have different methods of solving the same issue. Global warming is different because, on the other hand, there are Democrats who think that it is a problem that needs to be addressed, while Republicans don't think anything needs to be done. They deny that it is human-caused, and so they don't feel responsible for stopping it. Climate change denial first started to become popular back in the 1990s when global warming was first starting to be noticed as a severe problem. As Vice President Al Gore took dramatic steps to addressing climate change, the Republican Party, who never saw global warming as an urgent issue, retaliated against him. They used his radical stance to discredit him, and since Gore didn't have a Republican partner who shared his agenda, they could use this arguing point against the Democratic Party as a whole. Since then, denying climate change, or at least denying that it is man-made, has become a staple of the Republican Party, with many politicians using it as a key point when running for office. But today, do they believe this? Even recently, there has been bipartisan support for many environmental policies. In 2018, with a Republican-controlled Congress, they passed a bill that put a specific price on CO2 emissions. Many Republicans know that this is a real problem, but speaking out about it would mean losing popularity. Jason Toa, a Harvard-educated program analyst for the EPA, agrees that Republican politicians might want to do more for the climate, but think that it is too risky.
Right now, some of them might agree that they need to do more or might need a shift, but they might be apprehensive because they might feel like that might upset their shareholders or that might upset their constituencies.
They can't express their true opinions without the risk of losing supporters and, in turn, losing their political positions. With all this talk about Republicans versus Democrats, people can easily lose sight of the real issue. A lot of people are being negatively impacted by global warming. As much as climate change is affecting the U.S. with sea level rise, droughts, and increased chances of wildfires and hurricanes, it disproportionately affects smaller, poorer communities that don't have the resources to adapt to these changes.
So basically, yeah, with climate change, it's either the most developed countries are polluting the most and driving the Earth's warming the most, but additionally, the most developed communities are able to adapt the best for changes. So let's say, for example, we think about sea level rise, and you say, and to be honest, the majority of the East Coast of the United States will be impacted by this. But in cities that have higher income in those areas, they can build adaptation techniques, whether it's flood walls, whether it's honestly just rebuilding homes that were destroyed and whatnot. But let's say, an island nation or a middle resource or lower income country, when sea level rise comes and hits, when a hurricane comes, they can't just rebuild quick. They don't have as much funding for these adaptations, and they can't really mitigate themselves either because they're not the ones driving the global climate crisis.
The countries that have the least contribution to climate change are the ones experiencing the worst challenges. Even on an individual level, the negative impacts are disproportionate to the amount of energy people consume. Indigenous cultures are being severely impacted, even though they have some of the smallest energy footprints.
Probably the best example of it in terms of direct connections is sea ice.
Glenn Jude is an expert in the ways that global warming affects the ecosystems and native people in Alaska, and was part of the first studies of how the environment was changing.
The sea ice on the Arctic Ocean and the Bering Sea is forming later, is disappearing earlier, is thinner, is shifting more, and if you look at the distribution of native people in Alaska, you find that there's a strong concentration along the coast. Why? Because there's a lot of food available there that's not available on land. The giant whales, the walruses, the seals, the fish. They had traditional ways of getting those food resources that involved being on the ice. So the ice is not safe, the ice is not available, the ice formation is sometimes mismatched with the movement of the animals. And that's a huge, huge problem, because these communities are not connected by roads to the rest of the country. The people there don't have the option of just going to a grocery store to get what they need.
Global warming isn't some abstract theory that is only going to start taking effect in 2050. It is happening now, and people are suffering from it. We need to act now, but we can't just ignore people who disagree with us. We need to get everyone on board and be able to discuss coherently so that more perspectives get involved.
Most people will tell you, well, we just got to get those people who refuse to admit the problem, and we just got to bang them over the head, throw them in jail. You're hearing talk like that. Well, how's that going to help? Arrest people who disagree with you. Okay, I mean, really, this has got to be a broad social movement and direction. We need everybody involved.
So what can we do to get people to care about climate change? How can we start these crucial discussions of how to address global warming without antagonizing people? Audrey Schulman, the co-founder of HEAT, an environmental organization that focuses on driving system change, says that changing the terminology we use is essential.
Like all the fighting we are doing politically means that Republicans think it is a good thing to like turn on every light in the house and heat their house a lot and drive a big gas guzzling car. That they want to do that almost to get back at Democrats, and Democrats being unable to listen to Republicans and understand what motivates them and understand how to talk in a common language about taking care of this planet. I mean, a lot of Republicans are into, use words like creation care or stewarding or fiscal responsibility. And that we can't simply use the right vocabulary for each group to be able to talk across lines and to listen hard to figure out what motivates people to make them change. That's terrible. Let's forget about what organization we are part of or what our viewpoint is, and instead listen much more to be able to take effective action, to find out how to make the situation better quickly.
Jason Toa thinks that in addition to using unbiased terms, it is important to start environmental education early.
I think from elementary through high school, I think that's a key thing, because I think a problem is by the time people first learn about environmental issues, they see it during a presidential debate or something like that. And at that point, they see one candidate saying one thing and one candidate saying the other, and they say, well, because my candidate says this, I have to do this. Whereas if you just start from an earlier age and start hearing more perspectives on it, more of the population has a positive view on it.
In addition, we should keep educating ourselves throughout our life. Paul Barton, a professor of environmental conservation at UMass Amherst, suggests we should
keep reading, keep studying, keep visiting places, try to go through daily life and longer term with this kind of sense of discovery and innate curiosity that some people sadly seem to lose with time or not develop in the first place.
In the end, this isn't going to be resolved unless we put aside our differences and learn to work together. It may sound cliche, but this is how change is made.
We need everybody. We need everybody's ideas. Every single individual person on the face of the earth is an expert in something. They're an expert in being themselves and in a member of their culture, and they have something to offer. So what we want to do is we want to unite and we want to harness all of that, and then we'll get the job done.